Hey, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Introducing. I am your host, Smart Video Girl, and you have tuned in again to another great edition of Introducing the Podcast. We're here every Tuesday at our new time this season at 8 p.m. only on YouTube. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know when we are live and when we are in effect. Okay, again, I am Smart Video Girl. Make sure you go on over to IG and follow me, and you can see everything that I have going on. Hey, Corlin Jones, how you doing today? Thank you, everybody who is tuning in. It is the first show of Black History Month today, and I have a very great show for you all today. All right. Um, as you know, I'm doing a lot. I love Black history. I'm always wearing my Afrocentric things. My earrings, the shirts or whatever the case may be. And today I wanted to start off Black history with someone who is who has taught me a lot about Black history, who's taught me the importance of knowing yourself and passing along the information. So as we always do, we're bringing you new people, new ways, new things, and new ways of thinking. And so today, who I have for you on our new people is no other than my mentor, Dr. Dula. And we're going to be talking about the first of many. So I would appreciate it if you guys would join me in welcoming Dr. James A. Dula to the podcast. Hey, Dr. D.
Hello, Miss Glenn. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Hey, Pro Doya RC podcast. We got people in the building watching. Wave to the people, Dr. D. They want
In the building.
to. Yes. So we are, today is my first show of Black History Month, but Black history is all the time. We want to do that. But we, in February, get the time to set aside time to be intentional about talking about Black history. And today, the topic is the first of many. And it was inspired because Dr. Dula, my mentor, sent me a text message and was telling me about all the great things that he has done, right? And being the first. And I said, well, we talk about Black history as people who are no longer here but have left an impact. But Dr. D is living history. He's here right now. And what better way than to experience living history than to hear from the mouth of the people who actually live it? So thank you, Dr. D, for joining me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yes. So for the people out there, I want you to go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself. My mom said, "Hey, welcome, Dr. Dula. Good to see you."
Hi, Mom. I always wanted to do that.
Hi, Mom. So,
No,
okay, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself so that they can get a little insight to what I already know, and then we can jump into our conversation a little more.
well, thank you very much. And let me say once again, I'm really, really proud to be on your show because, Miss Glenn, you're doing a lot of good things for our community. And you have come a long way. I have watched you grow, and I've seen you evolve into that person that wishes to spread our news and our history throughout our masses. So I want to thank you for that, and just let you know how proud I am of you for all you have done and all you're accomplishing. I've always said that our history is not a closed door subject.
That's
We
right.
need to open that door and talk about it and teach our children. Uh, but let me digress. I often start off my speeches, regardless of where I've spoken around the world. I've started off by saying I'm just an old country boy from North Carolina that grew up during the segregation, separate but equal,
Mm-hmm.
and saw the world for what it really was. I grew up in a household where my parents said, "You are not a second class citizen, so don't even think that way." I
Mm-hmm.
grew up at a time when World War II veterans had returned from war and returned to the communities and began to make livelihoods for their families, to seek employment, to create brotherhood associations so that African American, predominantly African American males could meet and talk about the course of action they would take in a society that was riddled due to the fact of Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a society of those World War II veterans who told me that I could be anything I wanted to be if I just set my mind to it.
Mm.
The days when we sat around campfires, the days when families came together around the dinner table, the days when we all, as children, just listened and we learned from that older generation. So they were the griots of my time. They told us stories. They shared the lessons, and they taught us that all education doesn't take place in the schoolhouse, the classroom. That a lot of the education that is essential to us to be able to thrive and to evolve is presented in the home by the parents, in the communities by the elders, and so oftentimes we as children we would listen to them, and then we would practice what they preached, and so it really made a difference. I went on uh, to be one of the first people to desegregate schools in North Carolina. It wasn't easy. I can remember the day we desegregated. We had to go through uh, two or three rows of law enforcement agencies, the sheriff, the police, and I think the National Guard was there. We also had to go through huge crowds that did not want us to be in the integrated schools. But we went in and we persevered because we had been taught that we were not second class, that whatever others could do, we could do better. And we took that mindset not just for ourselves, but at the time they said, do it for your race. And so there was a closeness, a bond that evolved from that. Do it for your race because we wanted to make our race look good. Uh, from there,
Mm-hmm.
from there, I entered the United States Air Force at the height of Vietnam in 1967. My mother had to sign for me to go into the Air Force, and reluctantly she did. I was only 17 years old, and
Wow.
the war was taking place. I'd already seen classmates of mine who had joined the military the year before. I'd already seen them coming back home in body bags. It was a turbulent time, the Vietnam War. So I did that, went to the Air Force School of Administration, graduated first in my class, and that's another story I'll get into maybe later. And because I graduated at the top of my class, I was rewarded with a choice assignment, and that assignment was to the Pentagon. And from there, I did the best I could to get a college education. 13 years later, I would be commissioned as a lieutenant in the United States Air Force, and went on to have a nice, lucrative Air Force career where I retired in 1997, 30 years later, as a major and a commander in the United States Air Force. So
Wow.
I've had a long history, enjoyable history. Wouldn't change a day of it. Maybe 1 or 2 days, but
Maybe.
yeah, I loved my military career, and now I'm a civilian, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Dula, you talked about briefly you kind of flew over your military history, but you said that you were the first um, commander, African American commander, and one of the first commanders in the Air Force.
Well, I was one of the when I arrived at the Pentagon, I found out that I was the first African American military person to serve at the highest level of Air Force intelligence in the Pentagon. And that was a
Wow.
big deal because we were fighting a Cold War with USSR, which we know is Russia, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a very competitive war, and everything was close hold. So to receive an assignment at that highest level of Air Force intelligence on the air staff in the Pentagon was a feat, and many of the other African Americans were watching me to see if I made it, and to
Right.
watch my
Hmm.
progress. And so, as I said, we were always groomed to give your best and then some. And it was there that the officers in Air Force intelligence encouraged me to go to college. I was able to meet such greats as uh, at, he was a colonel at the time, but he went on to be the Air Force first four-star general. But I met, and we used to talk in the hallways, who turned out to be General Chappie James. Uh,
Wow.
I also was encouraged by the senior enlisted advisor, the highest enlisted position in the Air Force, who happened to also be African American. And those two took me under their wing, and we'd have long conversation. So it was a time of change in the military in the Pentagon, and I was under the tutelage of some very great people that looked like me, and that was really the turning point in my life, because they encouraged me to move forward, to do the best I could, and because of it, later on I became a commander in the Air Force when I was commissioned, and one of my assignments was to be the first headquarters squadron commander for the 89th Military Airlift Wing, which is the home of Air Force One. As a
Wow.
matter of fact, I was the administrative commander for the Air Force One pilot's office. So I
Wow.
had I wore it with a badge of honor, because it's just certain things that we were not selected to do back in the
Right.
70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I had an opportunity to blaze new trails for people in the Air Force.
Yes, you guys are hearing it right here on Introducing. You are hearing and learning about history that you are not going to read in books, but it's important and it's impactful for the progression of our people, for us to know that we are great too, for people to be trailblazers, like you said, Dr. Dula, and leading the way to make room for others to follow, and you being an example of someone who is great and who exudes greatness and excellence. Everything that Dr. Dilla does, he does it, and you hear that was taught at a very young age. Like, you do it for your people. You do it, and it's a level of excellence that's not just about showing up to be the best, but there is a certain level of how you carry yourself and how you do things. And going to a HBCU myself, Hampton University, whoop, whoop, you learn these types of things and you don't really understand them sometimes. The motto that always sticks in my head now is to be on time. No, to be early is to be on time, and to be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable. Just that motto itself is just saying, if you're going to do something, be prepared, prepare yourself to show up on time. And on time is not right when it starts, it's early, so that you can get a scope, people know who you are when you show up, and things of that sort. So these type of ground rules, these type of morals and things to live by are very important. And I thank you, Dr. Dula, because you have been that person for me. He's been a mentor of mine for very long time now. He met me when I was very young, in my 20s, and when I was starting out as an entrepreneur, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And he's always been an encourager as well as an educator, a support person, and like you said, he's seen me. Some of these pictures, he's seen the progression through those pictures you guys see in my intro. So I want to thank you, Dr. Dula, for being who you are and continuing to pass on and sharing the information with others, because I think that's very important.
I have a
And
saying, Miss Glenn, and uh, I often tell people that I came up on the rough side of the mountain,
mm-hmm,
but when I reached the top, I stood in victory. And now it's time for me to let my light shine. And
mm-hmm,
so I encourage those, as I did you, when you're coming up on that rough side of the mountain, you don't know who you are and where you're going, then to latch on to someone that can help you get to the top of that mountain, and then so that you too can stand in victory and let your light shine. And you did just that. And I enjoy mentoring others and then seeing their light come on when they realize that they've made it. But life is a progressive thing. Uh,
Mhm.
just because you make it, you don't stop. You've heard me say 1,000 times. Uh, ask not what your country can do for you.
But what
Just
you can
get
do
up
for
and
yourself.
do something. Do
Yeah,
something.
do
And
something.
yeah, and find out what your purpose is and focus on it, and just step out there and go for it.
That's something I talk about all the time for people who watch the show all the time. I always talk about growth and contribution being um like the highest human needs. Like we are called to grow. We evolve, we grow naturally. You grow in your sleep, you go from a baby to an elder, but really that the growth in your spirituality, the growth in who you are, and then discovering who you are, that type of growth, and then being able to contribute to your community in some way that is productive, that helps someone else in their growth process. And you definitely are an example of that, Dr. Dula. So, I'm going to keep giving you your praises and stuff
Well,
because I
that's
love
what
you so
Du Bois
much.
said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dr. W.B. Du Bois
Yeah.
said, get yours and go back and help somebody else, the talented 10th.
That's
And
what
so we
that's
as a
right.
people can't lose sight of that. And as you and I spoke about I think it was last weekend, it's up to the evolutionary elders to help the next generation to move forward and to realize who they are by
Yeah.
standing on the shoulders of those of us that what I consider the last generation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, those of us that fought the civil rights movement, those of us that participated in the sit-ins, the marches, the meetings and NAACP and the SCLC and the churches and SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committees. We're the last generation because once we're gone, the history of the civil rights movement will be gone with us. So, as
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary elders, if we don't teach our generations, and you've heard me talk about the intergenerational conversations that we need to have. If we don't teach the lessons, well, who is going to teach them? And whose
Mm-hmm.
shoulders will the next generation stand on? It's
Mm-hmm.
very important that we get back to basics and that we realize that there is learning to take place from those that came before us. And you've learned that lesson well, and I'm very proud of you for doing that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dula. And, that's kind of the inspiration for a project that I have coming up, which you have that you're privy to, which is my documentary called Dreams of a Vision, which addresses the need for intergenerational conversation, the need to use modern technology and different forms of media in order to continue the process of passing down the stories and the legacies of our people and our history. Because like you said, evolutionary elders, amen. Cortland said that. Before the show, you were talking about my stylish ways right now, and how it was very much reminiscent of the Renaissance time period, and how they were called the newest Negroes, and now you're saying that we're the evolutionary Negroes. And if we are to evolve as a people, then we have to make sure that we're doing things that will allow us to maintain our history. What we cannot do is let it pass away. We cannot let our history end or begin, for that matter, after segregation. I think that's very important, especially for Black people. There's a lot of conversation sometimes around, segregation and integration, and whether it was good or bad for the Negro. All that aside, I feel like we should move forward in knowing our history before and after that, and so that integration itself is not something that we base our future on.
Hmm.
And you being integral in that part, being someone who was there at that turn, who being someone who was the first to be in an integrated school, to integrate schools. How do you see the role of integration in where we are today, and what do we need to do to kind of make sure that we don't lose what was before that?
Well, growing up in a period of segregation and standing on the shoulders of people who were also evolving at the same time
Mhm.
during my age period, people like Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a member of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and encouraging students to be involved with the civil rights movement and to fight for equality and justice. Uh, uh, Growing up in that time period that she was advocating for uh, uh, education, equality, and so forth, growing up during the time when Brown versus the Board of Education uh, was won in our courts in 1955, which desegregated schools. We watched all this play out. I mean,
Mhm.
we were the history. And during the days of segregation, uh, we knew our communities. We knew each other. We knew uh, uh, every family member, who they were kin to, and actually what they stood for, because we had a very close knit Negro community, and no matter where you went, we spoke with each other. We were in it for the same cause. Uh, if we were in a car and we passed an African American brother or sister, and I use the term brother or sister because that was our rallying cry then. That's what united us as a people, to see a someone and say, "Hey, brother, hi, sister." That meant something, and we need to
Mhm.
get back to that because we knew each other. We knew what we stood for. We endured the same struggles, going to the back doors of restaurants and hotels and being served last and could not be served at the front counter. Uh, so we knew that integration uh, was a form of glue. uh, Segregation was a form of glue that kept us bound together. We knew also that integration was, once it came about, was going to destroy all that. We knew that we had grown very powerful during the civil rights movement because we were able to connect with people in other counties and cities, and
Mhm.
regardless where you traveled, we were close knit. We were allies, as if we were all family members. Uh, but as soon as desegregation, I use the term desegregation because we weren't really appreciated when
Integrate, yeah.
schools were mixed. Uh, Once that happened, it tore apart our communities. No longer did I know who your cousins, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts were in the town over. We had towns named after us. I come from a town called Dula Town that was founded by great grandmother Harriet. Great grandmother Harriet was a slave on the Belvoir plantation. We knew her history. Had children by the slave owner, and she gave birth to generations of doctors and lawyers and carpenters and plumbers and engineers, people who knew the value of hard work but took religion with them. And they knew the value of working together and coming together as family. And so
Mhm.
when integration came about, it broke apart that family bond that we had with our brothers and sisters across the sphere. And we started seeing change. So now, all of a sudden, it was more like an independence evolved over
Mhm.
a unified effort. And so that was the biggest change following following separate but equal. But it was good, and it was good too, because America is a country where all men supposedly are created equal, and we should be judged by our character, not the content, by content of our character, not by our color or
Mhm.
ethnicity. And so it gave us an opportunity to go out into the world and pursue other things. But because of it, you can now go in any restaurant in the front door. You can go in any hotel in the front door. You can eat. You can do pursue your education, what you'd like to pursue at any college or university. So it opened up many doors, but it's sort of bittersweet for my generation because we often talk about when my classmates and I get together, we talk about the days when we went to the segregated schools and everybody knew everybody, and there was
Yeah.
such a oh just a genuine love for who we were as a people. And then integration when integration took place, uh, half of us went to one school and the other half went to another school, and we lost contact and we did not come back together till 30 years later. And
Wow.
doing a reunion, and we had an opportunity to talk about who we were and where we have come. So it's been bittersweet, but at the same time, it is what it is. And I would just say this to the generation that's in leadership positions now, which is that 40 to 60 age group. Uh, it's time to really stop and take a look at who you are, because now we have babies killing babies that look like us. Now
Yeah.
we have carjackings of seniors and others by people that look like us.
Yeah.
Now we have seniors that my generation is afraid to go out into the streets because of the younger generation that looks like us. So
Hmm.
we've got to find a way to cope with this newfound integration and opportunities we have, and find a way to where we can bring back that unity, bring back that love for who we are, bring
Mm.
back that pride and caring for one another, instead of that remorse and hate and things of that nature that I'm seeing even in our own race, the envy, the jealousy. We've
Hmm.
got to be able to get back to the moral standards of loving our neighbors and brothers and sisters. So desegregation caused fragmentation in the newest Negro community, and I like to say we're now the evolutionary Negro community because we have evolved from where we were second class citizens to where we have opportunities. Now we have to learn to live with it.
Yeah. So two things came to mind when you were talking. Integration almost was like a divide and conquer type of thing. It's almost like, you have we were together here, and then, it's a integration. It was divide and conquer because we were divided up into, we were able to go. We were able to, break loose. We were able to go beyond the limitations that had been set upon us. So now, as we evolve, as we come back into this new awareness now and see where we are, um, and of course, it's just called as evolutionary. As time passes, the we see the benefits, we see the faults in it, we see where we can improve, we see what we need to do. It's time now to make some of that shifts, and that's exactly what my documentary is about. So thank you for pointing that out. That the generation, I say it all the time, the generation, the 70s and the 80s babies, um, some the 60s too as well. We were some of the last generations to see things before the advancement of technology that really threw things off, pulled the roof off of everything.
Mhm.
So there was still some sense of community. There was still some sense of playing outdoors. There was still some sense of knowing your neighbors and communicating and bond, the bond that you had as a family. So it is definitely time for us to get back to that sense of community and that sense of self. And so I'm going to bring that up before we close this out because I think that's going to be my new way of thinking. But you guys know what we do every single show. I have, um, before we continue on with my guest, Dr. Dula, today. And if you want to get in contact with him real quick, I'll let you know. You can go on over to Facebook and follow him at The Socratic Speaker, or you can email him at the Socratic Speaker at gmail.com, and you can book him for events. He'll come out and speak to the people if you need. He's a great mentor. He's a great consultant as well. So if you want any services. If you want to talk to him, please feel free to reach out at those two methods. All right. And as always, we have some new things for you guys. So today, I want to remind you that I will be speaking on March 3rd at 1 p.m. for the Everyday Woman Conference. All right, March 3rd at 1 p.m. The work is you. That's the topic and conversation that I will be speaking on. I'm so excited because this is like my first speaking gig of 2023, and I look forward to so many more. And with that being said, I have several dates coming up for you on the calendar, so make sure you check it out. I will be actually this Saturday. I will be doing my co-hosting Speak Life at 10 p.m. on IG Live. And then on the 19th and the 26th, I will be a guest on Believe at 6 p.m., where we'll be talking more about Black history. On the 19th, the topic is Black Love is Black Power. And on the 26th, it is What is Black Power? And then in March, again, March 3rd, I'll be doing the Speak Up Sis at 1 p.m. Make sure you check me out for that. And then Speak Life again, which is every second Saturday. I will be on IG Live. And then the 18th, I will be talking about my upcoming documentary, Dreams of a Vision, on the social justice, racial injustice Bible study at 2 p.m. So make sure you check those things out. And we are in February. It is Love Month, not only Black History Month. And I am going to be covering an event this Saturday, uh, hosted by Silence Kills, and it's Surviving through the art series, Redefining Black Love. Is this Friday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And if you would like tickets, you can get those tickets over there on Eventbrite. It'll be networking, open mic, workshops, food, and drinks. So make sure you check that out. And again, um, it is always a pleasure to be able to be in the community. I enjoy being in the community, being able to bring you guys new things that are going on. And I'm so excited because this year I'm doing a whole bunch of new things myself. So I'm really excited about that. So, Dr. Dula, do you have any new things going on? What's new with you?
Well, this month I'm trying to do as many broadcasts as possible, just
Mm-hmm.
like with your show, Smart TV Video Girl. Uh,
that's, that's me. I
Close
love it.
enough.
That's close enough. I like it.
Because we have to spread the word.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we have to talk about, as you started with, our history. We
Mm-hmm.
have to talk about where we were and how we have arrived at the point we have arrived today. And so I'm speaking as much as possible
Okay.
about this. Let me say this. Oftentimes, uh, we see a lot of shows where people have great ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but once the camera is off, uh, they start planning for the next great idea when we
Mm-hmm.
should be working together to come up with a plan to work together and to share our ideas, come up with a plan to include our youth, to
Mm-hmm.
teach our youth, to help our youth, to, in other words, come together so that we make a difference, not just on the TV cameras, but in the community. As you said a little while ago, you love working in the community, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't have enough of that. We need other people like you, Crystal, that are willing to open the doors and have the evolutionary griots come and speak about uh, how we evolved from where we were at. And I already mentioned the fact that we were at the bottom of the perceived totem pole, and when doing segregation, we had to fight for everything we got. And to us, uh, love of relationship meant love of each other. You can't
Mm-hmm.
have love of relationship if you don't begin with yourself where you fit in and have a mindset that our people all matter.
That's right.
And that will eventually, hopefully, catch on. We just didn't start out by singing "We'll Overcome" and marching. It
Mm,
began deeper than that. We had a deeper foundation. We had a blueprint for love, and we understood that whether you were with SNCC or SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Dr. King, or the NAACP, or you were with Malcolm X, it all meant the same thing, that we
mm,
were fighting for our equality, and it had to come from the heart. And from the heart comes love for who you are, and,
mm.
love for those that are going to follow you because you want to leave them something special. So I
Yeah.
think we need to get back out in the communities, uh, be organized. I wish the churches would open their doors a little bit more than they have, uh, because we really don't see our churches taking the lead as we did in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So we're encouraging our church to get more involved, so
Mm,
that we'll be able to draw in more people, because that's always been the foundation of who we are. Without the churches, we couldn't have had a rallying point. Without the churches, there would not have been the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And let me say this: women have always led the way.
mhm.
We often hear about the Harriet Tubmans, the Dorothy Heights, the Sojourner Truths. Am I not a woman? We often hear about Fannie Lou Hamer and others. Many people don't know that the civil rights movement, which started actually with the Montgomery bus boycott, the plan for that was created by the women of Jackson State College, and they created the plan and in essence gave it to Dr. King and the SCLC to move it forward for the Montgomery bus boycott. People don't know that.
Mhm.
People don't know that the Tuskegee Airmen were able to be so successful because they had the backing of African American women who counseled them, who was there to help them through the depression and through the times of sarcasm and backlash and things of that nature. The women made the difference. They heightened them around. People don't
Yeah.
know because of World War II, it was a 688 all black women's force in Europe that made sure mail got down to the troops in Europe. Without
Mm,
them, the mail would have never reached because they had to form that union that of the 688, because the mail was backed up and it was not reaching the troops on the front line. And anybody in the military knows the most important part of any day on the war front or in training is mail call day.
mail down, mail call. Mhm.
So these are things that women have done to lead the way. I look now in our communities, and women are still leading, whether it's Sister for Sister Network Incorporated, or Sister for Sister, or the Deltas, or the AKAs, whomever. Sisters are still, and let me say that again: sisters are still leading the way, and we could
Mhm.
need the sisters to continue to do what you're doing, and bring the brothers along with you in a
Mhm.
unified way, so that we can canvass the entire community, because that's the difference between yesterday and today, is the unity. We don't have that's concrete, that's binding in
Yeah.
our for all of our people today.
Yeah. That is very true. And I saw a post on social media from one of my friends who said that men protect women physically, but women protect men spiritually.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think what you're speaking to in that sense is that and it's very important that each we recognize the roles that we play. And so thank you, Dr. Dula. And I had my son, aka my assistant producer. He's my assistant producer today. I had him look up 4 things of Black history, since we're talking about the first of many. So this is from Mr. Elijah Starks, who, this is his handwriting, so you guys can see I did not write this. My son gave me some facts that I want to share with you guys today, because I do homeschool. So this is part of, his exercise and his producer roles for today. So he said, he gave me four facts that I'm going to share with you guys. The 3 light traffic light signal was invented by Garrett Morgan. Okay. Uh, Frederick Arnold created the first aluminum folding chair with fabric strapping for the seat and back. Okay. And then Lewis Howard Lattimore improved the light bulb by making it last longer. All right. And finally, Alexander Miles was a successful Black inventor in the late 19th century, best known for inventing elevator doors that could automatically open and close. So, I want to thank my assistant producer, Elijah Starks, today for his research
Mhm.
and providing information that was helpful for us to continue to show us the roles that we play not only in community but in technology, in the evolution of things that we continue to use today, which is very important. um, and I felt it important to bring him in on this and have him do the research, uh, one, so that he can it could be hands on for him and me not just tell him what it is, and he can, when I told him what to do, he said, "Oh, I know one already." So it was very exciting for him
Mhm.
to do that. And I think that's something that we have to encourage our kids to do, is to continue to learn about the greatness that uh, Blacks contribute to this country, including yourself, Dr. Dula.
Oh,
So thank you, Elijah,
mhm.
for that.
Tell him those were very good. We're very proud of him, and
Yeah.
that we all applaud his efforts. Very good.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Look, Cortland Joe said, "Thank, great job, Elijah." Yes, those were
Amen.
wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Those were wonderful. I had to give him his producer credits for that. Yes. So look, we're coming up on wrapping up on the show. It does go really, really fast. I told you it was going to go fast.
Mhm.
But the last thing that I want to talk about today, and how I always wrap up the show, is our new ways of thinking. And as we were talking today, what came to mind for me was something I brought up on my Mindful Mondays, which you make sure you guys check that out on YouTube every Monday in the evening. I do a mindful moment, and this week it was about awareness.
Mhm.
And I was talking about it in awareness of your feelings and how you feel, like where those feelings come from, and where how you feel, what you're feeling, where they come from, and how they're showing up in your life. But it's also to an awareness of your history, an awareness of who you are. And I think being aware of our history is very important for you to understand who you are today, and especially in the Black community, because of a lot of the things that we're seeing show up are stem from, in my belief, our inability to understand and process our feelings, and to really understand and to own who we are and how we're feeling. And if we are able to do that, to become fully aware of ourselves, be present in the moment, and know who we are, then we can combat some of these issues that we're having in our community. And so that does come from knowing your history, comes from knowing that you are great, knowing that you aren't what people say that you are, but you have the power to redefine yourself. And you can do that in a way that allows you to be strong and confident in who you are.
Mhm.
So that is my new way of thinking for today's show. And I just want to thank you again, Dr. Dula, because it's very important that people understand. Um, you mentioned something else. You said you were a social anthropologist, right? Tell
Yes.
me what that means. What does that mean?
Well, years ago, I think I was on a speaking tour in, I think it was in Georgia, and I was introduced as a social anthropologist, which meant that I'm one that dissects our society. And I do that so that I can look at past, present, and future to create a roadmap of who we were to who we should become. Uh,
Mhm.
I stand once again on the shoulders of people like Frederick Douglass. The Civil War was won because he encouraged President Lincoln to move from the idea of just preserving the Union, but to free the slaves during the first Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 to be able to fight in the war. Once that was done, the tide was changed, and the North won the war. Uh, but at the same time, he went on to do some great things and encourage his people to always stand tall, to be heard. I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Du Bois, who did the same thing, became a literary giant, a social giant. He did that by understanding once he left Massachusetts and went to Fisk University, where he saw uh, segregation for the first time in its truest form. Uh, he began to write and to dissect the society that he was living in at that time, and began to understand it a lot more, and turned out to be one of the most brilliant minds that this country has ever known. Uh, I said that to say this: even as a black man, he rose above to make sure that he wrote things down and shared with the world who we were as a people and a nation. That's what a social anthropologist does. They look at society, dissect that society, and come up with solutions that will help society evolve. Thus, that's why I coined a phrase that was presented to me by Dr. Eugene Washington, who was a dear friend of mine, passed away, I think, last year. Uh, he planted the seed in me, evolutionary elder. He said, because we've come such a long way, but we have a long way to go, and it's up to the elders to stand tall and lead the way. So that's what a social anthropologist does. He sees society for what it is, but also he sees what it can be. And you're muted.
Thank you. That's um, I'm working hard over here. But social anthropologists, that kind of goes to what I was saying about being aware. You have to dissect, you have to really get to the core of things. Um, Ignorance is the opposite of awareness, and ignorance is not a bad word, it's just a lack of knowing. So we have to really take and be intentional about knowing who we are. We have to, and that is a full knowing of your history, of your personal self, and in order for you to really be show up and be present and be able to contribute in a way that you can shine your light and help others. So that is me wrapping this show up today. I want to say that I am so happy and grateful for my viewers, and I appreciate you all. That's my way of showing gratitude, which is very important to me. And I want to make sure that you guys are tuning in every Tuesday here at 8 p.m. or introducing. You're like, sharing, and subscribing. The only Greatness YouTube channel, because that's the only place that you can find introducing. That's the only place. Okay, that's the only place we are. All right. And if you want to get in contact with Dr. Dula, if you would like to have him as a guest speaker for any time that you have any events that you have coming up, not just for Black History Month, but anything at any time, make sure that you follow him on Facebook at the Socratic Speaker, or send him an email at the Socratic Speaker. It is very important that we have people like Dr. Dula who are interested in passing along the information and not becoming famous. He's a very humble person. He is very much someone who, if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, then you know. And I know. And I want to be able to share you, Dr. Dula, with the world, because I think what you're doing, just being who you are, is important to society, and it's important to those coming up behind us. It's important to me so that I can pass on things like that to my son. So I think I want to thank you as always for being such a great mentor. for being such a great example of what it means to be great, to exude excellence, to be a community leader and an entrepreneur. And with that being said, you guys, this is introducing, and it's the first of many for Black History Month. Next week is actually Valentine's Day, and I'm going to have a guest on, your superhero, Tim Howard, and he's going to be talking about For the Love of It, and we're talking about community service, right? We're going to really be talking about community service and being loving your community and being able to give back to your community. So that's what we're going to do for Valentine's Day. You know, we might talk about some relationship stuff too, but we're really going to focus on loving our community, loving ourselves, and being reciprocative of that love. Okay. And like Dr. Dula said, we need to get back to that blueprint of love and knowing that everything that we do, if we do it in love, you know, then even if our methods are different, we're all headed to the same destination. All right. With that being said, I love you guys. I'll see you next week. Thank you again, Dr. D.
Thank you.
And don't forget to tell a friend. To tell a friend, introducing is here, and we will be back next week. Say bye, Dr. D.